Be me, Ben, 31, back-end dev at a mid-size B2B data company in a boring inland city. Not a leader, not a legend, just the guy who keeps services quiet so clients keep paying. We build compliance and routing software for logistics yards and regional energy operators. Our clients measure time in penalties, and our product gets noticed only when it breaks. We used to have problems and we solved them. Then we got fewer problems and no solutions. Culture was simple. Ship correct work, own your mistakes, and do not waste other people's time. No forced fun, no chance, no family, just deadlines, incidents, and a team that acted adult. The core of engineering was Reed, 36, senior dev, silent, fast, and allergic to meetings. Reed could stare at a screen for hours, then commit a fix that saved a quarter by itself. The steady voice was Gavin, 47, project director, company veteran, and human shield from sales. Gavin knew every client by first name and every legacy trap by line number and bad memory. We also had Elena, 33, SRE, blunt, competent, and the only person who enjoyed writing runbooks. Nobody treated Elena like a token because competence makes people shut up and listen. Our newest hungry kid was Mason, 25, junior dev, smart questions, and a bad habit of caring too much. Mason stayed late, asked for hard tasks, and learned fast because Gavin actually mentored him. For years, the machine ran like a tough old truck, ugly, loud, but reliable if you respected it. Then our longtime HR manager retired quietly and disappeared like a person with good instincts. A month later, the CEO introduced her replacement, Kira, early 30s, bright blazer, louder smile. Kira's first email said "exciting journey" 3 times and ended with a heart emoji, which felt wrong. Day 1, she booked a mandatory all-hands called Resetting Our Culture and Power Patterns. Even Reed showed up, which was rare enough to feel like thunder in clear weather. Kira opened a slide deck full of stock photos and spoke like a chatbot trained on slogans. She used toxic, resistance, and patterns. So often the words started sounding like alarms. She did not ask about uptime targets, on-call rotation, client contracts, or what the product even did. Instead, she asked who felt safe taking up space and nodded like she discovered a hidden wound. Then she pulled up a gender ratio chart and acted like she found a crime scene. Engineering was mostly men, leadership was mostly men, and she called it systemic harm in action. She said neutrality is violence because neutral systems preserve old power and old advantages. Kira announced a corrective advancement year and smiled like she expected applause from adults. She explained the policy slowly, like she was teaching children a moral lesson they owed her. For 1 year, all promotions to senior, lead, and management would go to women only, full stop. She said men had it easy for decades, so men could wait now without whining or retaliation. She said women had it hard, so women deserved accelerated opportunity, protection, and priority. The room went dead quiet, because even the most chill people felt the floor tilt under them. Gavin's face stayed calm, but his eyes got colder, which was his version of anger. Mason looked confused, like he was searching for the punchline hidden in the carpet pattern. Reed put his headphones on mid-meeting and stared at the wall like he was buffering. Kira ended with a bright question, asking if anyone wanted to share reflections or supportive thoughts. Nobody spoke because the only honest words in that room would have been career suicide. An hour later, Kira sent the official memo because she loved documentation when it served her. Subject line said elevate. Her implementation details, which sounded like a parody of itself. The memo included a sentence that made everything real. Male candidates may reapply after the correctional period. Another bullet warned that objections would be treated as culture risk signals needing coaching. Elena read it twice and said, "This is going to break incident response," then went back to work. The first weeks felt normal on the surface, but the mood underneath turned sour and careful. People spoke quieter in meetings, and jokes died fast because nobody wanted to be misread. Kira celebrated the calmer tone as progress because she confused fear with harmony. The first real test came when a team lead role opened in integrations and Mason applied. Mason had optimized a major pipeline and cut processing time for a big client by almost half. Gavin helped him prepare because under the old system, it would have been a clean promotion. Mason went into the interview excited and came out looking like someone stole his oxygen. He said they barely asked about architecture, leadership under pressure, or incident coordination. They asked how he would make space for non-male voices and confront his own privilege daily. They asked if he could promise not to dominate discussions with certainty during stressful moments. The kid tried to answer, but he was an engineer, not a sociology major playing word games. A week later, Kira announced the decision in a cheerful post with confetti emojis and bold text. The role went to Jade, hired 9 months earlier, friendly, social, and technically mediocre. Jade was not evil, but her code was the kind you rewrite later while swearing quietly. Everyone knew why she got it because the memo was explicit, and Kira was proud of that. Mason got a template email thanking him and inviting him to grow patiently through support. That day he didn't quit, which somehow made it worse because he just dimmed instead. Mason stopped staying late, stopped asking hard questions, and stopped volunteering for anything risky. He arrived at 9, left at 5, and turned into a polite shadow of the person he was. Gavin tried to pep talk him, but you cannot pep talk a locked door back into opening. The rest of us watched and understood the message. Effort does not buy you a voice anymore. Kira responded to the tension with new rules because she thought rules create reality. She launched communication safety guidelines and framed them as protection for women leaders. Men were told to avoid overly technical language that could exclude developing voices. Men were told not to correct women in public, not to challenge their framing, and not to mansplain. Men were told to ask permission before deep dives, because depth could intimidate and silence. Elena asked if these rules applied during production incidents when seconds mattered. Kira said incidents were when hidden power patterns show up most clearly and must be handled gently. Gavin tried to explain outages require direct speech, fast decisions, and clear ownership. Kira said directness is often aggression masked as efficiency, then wrote that down like scripture. She also introduced an anonymous accountability tracker, where staff could log concerning behaviors. It was a shared form with categories like domination, gatekeeping, and passive resistance. Within days, men were logged for speaking definitively, asking too many questions, and not smiling. Gavin got logged for projecting certainty that suppressed new leadership, which was absurd but real. Reed got logged for refusing to mentor because he didn't attend optional culture circles. Elena got logged too because competence looks like intimidation to people who fear competence. Kira ignored that inconsistency because the tracker was not for truth. It was for narrative control. By month 2, every meeting felt like a deposition where the wrong adjective could ruin your week. People began hedging, speaking slower, and using soft words to describe hard technical reality. Kira saw the softened speech and posted about reduced conflict and improved psychological safety. Meanwhile, small failures started piling up because soft words do not stop hard outages. Jade ran meetings with confident summaries that didn't match tickets or actual progress. She assigned tasks by who needed growth rather than who understood the system. When Reed tried to clarify a dependency, Kira accused him of weaponized complexity. Reed stopped clarifying because he learned words were now liabilities. Elena started saving screenshots of instructions and decisions because she smelled the future. I started doing the same because a good paper trail is armor when management gets stupid. Then the big contract arrived because reality always collects debt eventually. Our largest energy client needed a compliance migration by a fixed regulatory deadline. Missing it meant penalties that would hurt our quarter and embarrass the CEO publicly. Gavin had built a safe roadmap with phased rollout, validation gates, and rollback plans. Kira called the roadmap fear-based and said it centered old masculine control instincts. She recommended Jade lead the effort because Jade was a brave new voice who deserved trust. Jade got the role, men were labeled support contributors, and Kira copied the CEO for emphasis. Her email said men should practice stepping back so women can step forward without interference. Elena warned the on-call rotation for the migration window was unsafe and understaffed. Kira replied that on-call is a masculine right and should be redistributed to build equity. She made a schedule that placed first-time engineers on the most critical overnight hours. Elena said that was reckless, and Kira logged her for resistance to equity implementation. The migration window arrived, and the first issue hit within 15 minutes, like clockwork. The new pipeline stalled and began duplicating records, which is nightmare fuel for billing. Jade asked what idempotent meant while alarms stacked and clients started calling. Elena took the incident channel because production incidents are not leadership workshops. Kira joined the channel and told Elena to avoid dominating the space and to share airtime. Elena ignored her and ordered a rollback, because a rollback is not an identity statement. Reed started running recovery scripts quietly because he still cared about the product. Jade hesitated because she feared looking weak, and Kira reinforced that fear on purpose. Kira wrote that rolling back could harm trust in women leadership and deepen patriarchal narratives. We lost an hour arguing politely while duplication spread, and the client's finance team screamed. Eventually, the CEO demanded action, and Reed rolled back without waiting for anyone's blessing. The bleeding stopped, but the duplicated records still had to be corrected manually. Elena and Reed stayed through dawn, validating checksums, restoring data, and rebuilding confidence. Gavin called the client, spoke like an adult, and negotiated a reduced penalty with calm honesty. The next day, Kira emailed a glowing summary praising Jade's bravery and Kira's culture-first model. Reed's name was not mentioned, Elena's name was not mentioned, and Gavin got a soft footnote. That public erasure changed something, because people do not forget being used as invisible labor. After that night, several men stopped offering suggestions early because early suggestions became targets. They started asking for written approvals before acting because approvals shift blame uphill. They moved from owner mindset to ticket mindset because tickets protect you in stupid systems. Kira celebrated the change and said men were finally not trying to be heroes. Elena muttered that heroes are the only reason the company still existed at all. The slowdown accelerated because small optimizations and quiet fixes are what prevent big fires. Bugs that would have been fixed casually now sat in backlog until someone assigned them formally. Nobody wanted to volunteer for extra work because extra work now meant extra exposure. Kira responded by tightening control because dumb people interpret caution as defiance. She started weekly resistance review meetings where she read tracker entries aloud like evidence. She said the entries proved men were coordinating quiet retaliation against women's advancement. She demanded men attend coaching sessions about humility, listening, and stepping back from certainty. Gavin asked how this helped deliver projects, and Kira said delivery is impossible without justice. The CEO stayed out of it because his worldview was numbers and numbers looked fine for the moment. Then the next project hit, the one that broke the company's patience for good. A major logistics client wanted a new reporting layer integrated with billing and compliance. It required careful sequencing because the legacy database had landmines nobody documented cleanly. Gavin proposed a staged approach with shadow tables, load testing, and strict release gates. Kira called it pessimistic engineering and demanded a bold plan that proved women could lead alone. Jade was named lead again because Kira needed a symbol more than she needed a solution. Men were explicitly told to support without steering and to avoid unilateral fixes. Kira sent that instruction in writing and copied legal because she loved intimidation through formality. Week 1 went messy because Jade assigned tasks by growth needs, not by system knowledge. She put Mason on a critical migration module because it would build confidence and visibility. Mason asked for mentoring, and Kira said mentoring can be patronizing and recreate power imbalance. Reed offered to review migration code, and Kira said unsolicited review is a dominance tactic. Elena asked for staging load tests, and Kira asked why Elena needed to control everything. By week 3, the build was unstable, the schedule was fiction, and the client started asking hard questions. Jade's updates stayed cheerful and vague because she couldn't measure reality in technical terms. Gavin pushed for hard deliverables and got told he was creating pressure that harms safety. The client demanded a demo date, Jade promised one, and Reed quietly started preparing a miracle. Production went down on a Tuesday at 2:17 p.m. because reality loves humiliating timing. A module shipped with a schema mismatch and billing jobs began failing across multiple tenants. Queues backed up, dashboards exploded, and support phones started ringing like alarm bells. Elena opened an incident bridge and began triage like a surgeon working without anesthesia. Jade joined and asked if this was caused by negativity or lack of support for her leadership. Kira joined and immediately asked who was withholding help from Jade as a form of resistance. Reed suggested a rollback and a targeted hotfix because the failure mode was obvious to him. Kira told Reed to wait for Jade's decision because men should not seize control during pressure. We waited because policies had trained us to comply even when compliance burns money. The outage spread, clients called, and the CEO finally stepped into the incident channel in panic. Jade offered feelings instead of facts, and Kira offered sabotage theory instead of a plan. Elena described the actual failure in clear language and asked for approval to roll back now. Kira accused Elena of masking control as urgency and told her to soften her tone. The CEO snapped and ordered action because even he could see that the numbers were on fire. Reed rolled back, Elena stabilized cues, and we recovered in about 90 minutes. 90 minutes still cost us trust, and trust costs more than servers in this business. The next morning, Kira called an emergency all-hands and announced she had proof of sabotage. She said men were using learned helplessness to make women look incompetent in leadership. She said men were withholding information and refusing to act proactively to punish the program. She demanded everyone submit local logs and chat exports so she could investigate resistance patterns. Gavin asked if legal approved this, and Kira said legal would understand the urgency. Elena quietly emailed legal and the CFO with a timeline and a folder of screenshots. Gavin did the same and included Kira's written restrictions that forced engineers to wait. I added my own screenshots because I was tired of being blamed for physics. Kira had built a paper trail like a child building a trap for herself. 2 days later, executives called a closed meeting with Kira, legal, and finance. We heard about it because the CEO's assistant looked like she watched a car crash in slow motion. Kira opened with a speech about toxic masculinity and sabotage networks hiding behind politeness. The CFO cut her off and asked why promotions were restricted by sex in official policy text. Kira said it was restorative justice and that men could handle a pause because men are resilient. Legal asked why she ordered log collection without authorization and without privacy review. Kira said urgent harm demands strong action, and that privacy concerns protect saboteurs. The CEO asked if she understood our penalty clauses and client termination triggers. Kira asked what a penalty clause was, and the room apparently went cold and quiet. That was the moment leadership realized she wasn't strategic. She was dangerously ignorant. The CFO showed lost revenue projections, churn risk, and breach exposure tied to delayed fixes. Legal showed employee complaints about discrimination and retaliation tied to the tracker tool. Kira responded that the numbers were weaponized spreadsheets created by men to discredit her. She said feelings are evidence and that resistance will always deny itself with fake logic. The CEO asked if she had one piece of proof not based on interpretation and vibes. Kira said patriarchy is proof, then smiled like she delivered a killer argument. Legal slid a second stack across the table because they had been quietly digging for days. It was a printout of the anonymous tracker entries with metadata from the form system. The tracker was sold as anonymous, but our internal tools logged device fingerprints anyway. IT had matched most anonymous reports to the same laptop and the same office Wi-Fi. The laptop belonged to Kira, which made the room go from cold to sharp in one breath. The CFO asked why she was reporting employees to herself under fake anonymity for months. Kira blinked hard and said the system must be compromised by men in IT. Legal asked why the entries happened, mostly before 8 a.m. when the floor was empty. Kira said saboteurs work early because patriarchy is disciplined and always organizing. The CEO asked if patriarchy also used her saved browser profile and her company password manager. Kira said the logs were fabricated and demanded they audit everyone's feelings for hidden bias. The CFO rubbed his forehead and said this was not a courtroom of vibes. Legal showed a calendar invite titled Resistance Review Prep that Kira sent to herself weekly. It included draft tracker entries in the invite description, written in the same tone as the posts. Kira said she was modeling examples for training because people need guidance on reporting harm. Legal asked why the examples named specific male employees and cited real meeting dates. Kira said examples must feel realistic because reality is what convinces people to speak up. The CEO asked one last time if she understood what her job actually was. Kira said her job was protecting women from men, and that anything else was a distraction. The CEO said her job was protecting the company from risk, and she had become the risk. Kira tried to keep talking, and security stepped closer like the meeting had a timer. She dropped her badge on the table and said, "You'll regret choosing men over justice." Security escorted her toward the exit, and she kept repeating sabotage like it was a spell. 2 weeks later, Reed resigned with one paragraph because erasure teaches smart people to leave. The CEO sent a company-wide note blaming process gaps because he couldn't admit he hired a disaster. He also quietly deleted Kira's memo from the handbook, like deleting text deletes consequences. Gavin rebuilt the promotion process with legal watching because nobody trusted HR anymore. Jade lost the lead title and got moved to a quiet team where mistakes hurt less. Mason got a real technical interview panel at last, and the difference felt like oxygen. Elena rewrote the incident policy to allow blunt language because outages are not feelings-based. For the first time in months, people argued about code again instead of arguing about tone. It still took weeks before anyone volunteered to be a hero, because heroes had been punished here. Legal forced the CEO to send a blunt apology note, because silence would look like admission in court. The note admitted the policy was suspended and promised promotions would return to skill-based review. HR got replaced by an interim recruiter who asked boring questions like, "Can you actually do the job?" The interim person deleted the tracker form and said, "We don't do secret police here." Kira tried to blast a farewell email from her phone, but IT had already blocked her domain. She then showed up at the parking lot one morning to check on the women, and security turned her away. That was the real humiliation because nobody argued with her. They simply treated her as noise. Inside, engineers quietly returned to arguing about code because code at least follows rules that exist. The weird part is the company didn't turn into paradise immediately because trust heals slowly. People stayed cautious, kept receipts, and refused hero work because hero work had punished them. Then the twist hit, because Kira could not leave without one last public cell phone. She posted a long LinkedIn essay claiming fragile men in tech fired her for supporting women. She called herself a whistleblower and claimed she uncovered sabotage patterns and hostile culture. The post got likes from strangers who love narratives more than facts and never check receipts. Then our biggest energy client commented with a screenshot from Kira's own policy memo. The screenshot showed, "Male candidates may reapply after the correctional period," in bold text. The client wrote one line that killed her story publicly, saying they left because delivery became impossible. Kira deleted the post fast, but screenshots live longer than pride and longer than slogans. Months later, I saw her at a local tech meetup speaking about sabotage patterns with total confidence. She spotted me, smiled like nothing happened, and asked if the company finally collapsed without her. I told her we stabilized and shipped because boring success is what adults build for clients. She frowned and said, "Of course you did, because the system protects you," then walked away satisfied. That last moment was the real ending, because she still blamed men instead of her own ignorance. She tried to punish men for being men, called it justice, and nearly killed a business. Then she got thrown out like a bad patch, and she still insisted the bug was sabotage.